With regard to this idea of reality then, one of the important distinctions that we make is between reality and realism. Whereas perceptions of reality refer to principally the idea of actuality and possibility, the idea of realism deals more with the sense that it's the kind of thing that could or does happen. So it's more about typicality, social utility, and things like this. So as an adult, I don't see fictional media content as real, but I frequently see it as realistic. Not only because it's the kind of thing that could happen, but because it's because of the emotional truth or the sort of social utility that I perceive to be associated with it. One of the questions that we have to deal with is the idea of whether or not realism and reality, or the perceptions of realism and reality, actually matter. Why do we care? Well, one of the reasons that we care is that our perceptions of realism are moderators of the effects of exposure to media messages on a number of important outcomes. Lots of research has demonstrated a link between exposure to violent media messages and our actual aggression, between our what we watch and our attitudes and actions towards others. It turns out that this relationship is moderated by perceptions of realism, and also by the degree to which the content that we're viewing is realistic. So if I'm watching media content that I perceive to be relatively realistic, so it's high in realism, and that content is violent, then I am likely to be more influenced by that content and therefore become more violent or aggressive than someone who watches the same content but perceives it to be unrealistic. So two of us watch exactly the same content. I think it's high in realism. They think it's low in realism. When it comes to our aggression, I'm more influenced than they are. On the other hand, the degree to which violent content is depicted in a way that's actually realistic moderates this effect in the reverse way. So if I watch a violent television show that shows violence in a realistic fashion, it shows the consequences of the aggression. It shows the blood and the guts and the gore and whatever else. Then I am less likely to be influenced by that and become more aggressive than I am if I watch a less realistic, more sanitized version of the same content. Body ideals are another area in which perceived realism has been shown to moderate the effects of exposure to media messages on audience members. It's well documented that if I'm exposed to images of idealized bodies, super muscular men or ultra thin women, that as a consequence I feel worse about my own body. However, this effect seems to be largely limited to people who see those images as realistic. If I'm watching the program that depicts these idealized bodies, and I recognize that they are probably the result of unhealthy dieting and careful camera angles and professional makeup and lighting and all this kind of thing, then frankly it doesn't influence the way I see my body to nearly the same degree. Another reason that understanding realism and reality are important is that we seek out realism. It's part of the media content, or a characteristic of media messages, that we find attractive and appealing enough to search for it. There are reasons for this. Right? There are reasons that we seek out the real. When you think about it, media messages that are realistic allow us to get messages that we frankly just can't get in real life. There are many kinds of experience that you and I will never have. We're too far away, or we're not rich enough or powerful enough, or what have you. But through the power of media messages, we can. So if I want to experience some part of reality, some part of the real world, and I can't for whatever reason, then I want to seek out realistic messages so that I can experience the next best thing. For example, through the media, the cost of receiving messages is often much lower than it is to receive the same content or the same information in real life. My wife recently bought me tickets to see one of my favorite bands perform. So the tickets for the concert were about $100 each, and we had to drive and get a place to stay overnight in order to attend the concert. So all things considered, it was probably a $300 or $400 event. Now, in exchange for that, I got to enjoy the music for a good 2 hours. Now, on the other hand, through realistic media messages, I could have watched recordings of that concert or other concerts for the cost of the electricity and an internet connection, because there's tons of these things on YouTube. Now, it's not the same thing, right? There's something valuable about the experience, but if I don't have the $300 or $400 to spend on it, then this is an effective alternative. Almost all of us make this kind of decision all the time. You know, every year we want to watch the Super Bowl, but we can't afford the $1,000+ for one ticket. So millions and millions of Americans watch it on TV instead. We wouldn't watch a fictional reenactment of the same game. It wouldn't be the same, because that realism or that realness wouldn't be there. Another reason that we turn to realistic media messages is because it allows us to get some kinds of messages much more quickly. I can watch events unfold in real time, which can take a very long time for some events, or I can watch media content, and if it's realistic, receive much of the same information. Here at UC Davis, we have 2 corpse flowers. These are the giant flowers from the rainforests of South America that smell like rotting flesh when they bloom, but they only bloom once every 3 to 7 years. So if I want to watch a corpse flower bloom, I can wait around for 7 years, watching all the time, and then watch over the course of weeks as it slowly blossoms. Or I can go to YouTube and look up a time-lapse photography film of a corpse flower blooming. I can watch it as soon as I want to watch it, and I can watch the entire process unfold before my eyes instead of watching it unfold over the course of a week. In addition, for much of our entertainment content, we tend to look for media messages that are relatively real-seeming. We're not as concerned about realness or actuality, or even really possibility when it comes to entertainment messages, but we are very interested in realism, in maybe typicality or social utility. We want the sense that things are relatively real when we turn to them for entertainment. At the same time, a depiction of actual reality would really be mind-numbingly boring. If I wanted to just observe reality as my entertainment, I'd pull up the blinds and just watch the window. That's not entertaining. So instead, I want something that appears real, but is instead a sort of exaggerated representation of reality. Something that's hyper-real or more than real. How do people producing media content generate this sense of reality or realness while simultaneously going beyond what's real and enough to make it interesting or entertaining? Well, they tend to follow a fairly typical protocol. which is they provide some message elements that root a message firmly in the real. Some content that's either actual or is going to be perceived as very possible or typical. Then, in order to make things more exciting or interesting or engaging, they move one step beyond that. They take a remove, if you will, from the real into something more fantastic. How do they achieve realism without being real? Well, think about it for a moment. When we watch situation comedies, what we're watching is relatively real seeming in many ways. Situation comedies tend to be rooted in actual places. They take place in New York or the state of Illinois or Southern California. They involve families or groups of people that are high in typicality. Many people live in families. Many people have groups of close-knit friends. But they depart from reality in important ways that make the content exciting and appealing in ways that depictions of actual reality don't. For example, no one in real life is as funny as much of the time as people in situation comedies. I think I'm a pretty funny guy, but I'm not funny all the time. Another example, people in situation comedies tend to have tremendous amounts of free time. Time to just sit around and talk and make jokes and get into various hijinks. In real life, most people that I know work and sleep and take care of their families most of the time. That's where their time goes. In situation comedies, people live in apartments that their jobs wouldn't seem to allow them to afford. So in this way, the situation comedy is rooted in reality, but also depicts a departure from it. We can see the same thing for almost any genre of entertainment. Action movies are great. They depict soldiers or police officers or some sort of enforcer that's relatively realistic, right? The real world has these roles and people occupying these roles. But then they depart from reality in important ways that make the content more exciting. In action movies, they tend to encounter bad guys at a rate that's really dramatic. Guns fire longer, violence is more frequent, the protagonist is able to inflict more violence more frequently than any real law enforcement officer or soldier would be able to do, out of considerations of exhaustion, if nothing else. Even movies like superhero movies, the Spider-Man and the Avengers and Superman and all this sort of thing, actually take great care to root themselves in reality. A group of people are working together and they have interpersonal conflicts that threaten to harm their effectiveness as a team. This is something that's almost universal in terms of human experience. We see this and we recognize it and it seems real to us. Never mind that one member of the team turns into a giant green ogre when he's upset, and another one is, 70 years old and has the body of, an ultra-fit 30-year-old. Never mind that no real person has the genius and wealth of a Tony Stark and so forth. Those things are the departure from reality. But the film is nevertheless rooted in the reality of interpersonal dynamics that we see on the screen.